All right, guys, welcome to the very first episode of the Bitcoin Bum podcast. This is me, the Bitcoin Bum, and this show's focus is essentially Bitcoin through the lens of principles. Today, we will be focusing on the principle of privacy and doing a deep dive down the hardware wallet BC Vault has created. So today, my guests are Alan Solomon. Did I pronounce that correctly? Of
Yeah,
BC Vault, the CTO of BT Vault, and Lazy Ninja, otherwise known as what is the Twitter handle we've got? It is Freedom Isn't Safe.
I need
So
to work on my branding there, huh?
yeah, so gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Kai, for hosting us. Yeah, thanks a lot, Kyle.
Yeah. So as at least some of you will probably know, the reason this whole thing kind of exists, this conversation is taking place, is that I had some human error on my end, and I briefly locked myself out of my Bitcoin holdings. Basically, my entire position inside of my BC Vault was for a few days secure enough that even I had no access to it. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of concern, a lot of kind of uncertainty. There was just a whole lot of misinformation I felt being spread around. And then honestly, beyond misinformation was just non-awareness of BC Vault and its security features. So today I'd like to do an episode to kind of clear some of that up and really focus on why BC Vault has decided to do some of the things they've done in directions different to some of the other hardware wallets that are on the market. So, Alan, we did an Ask Me Anything, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and it was really, really enlightening. There was quite a few people that tuned in, had some really great questions. Um,
Yep.
I obviously not an expert in hardware wallets by any stretch of the imagination, which is why for this podcast I kind of really wanted to have a third party hardware wallet expert. I reached out to a few people. A couple of them recommended Ninja, so here we are. Um, Kind of without further ado, let's dive right into um, give us a rundown of how BC Vault came to be and why you guys kind of decided to go in slightly different directions from some of the other wallets on the market.
Yeah, the main concern when you're creating a new product for sure is to ask yourself why you are doing it, right? So, creating another product that would copy something that already exists in the market was not our idea by far. Everything came to the point where we have entered the crypto market, the blockchain market, because our company, Real Security, is a 19 years old company that deals exclusively with IT security. And well, of course, we have been entangled into blockchain, into security of blockchain and everything else. And sooner or later, we had to start using existing products. Well, basically, my frustration with existing products was so big that I said, guys, this is, well, I'm not happy with it, and I think we can do that better, based on everything that we know in year 2017, 2018. And this is basically how the idea came to light, because based on all the knowledge at that point, we had some different inputs, some different conclusions to how things can be done better. And one of the main reasons was people are getting screwed over because of well, the 12 seed words or 24 seed words as they are right now. So I said no, we're not gonna do another wallet that uses BIP standard and so on. Also, one of the main conclusions was, I want to have a wallet that really has a big display, because I had issues with small display and going through the addresses and private keys and so on. And then based on everything we have done, we have came to conclusions that really we cannot use regular flash, for example. So we said, oh no, regular flash, it can go corrupt. So we have to use something else. asked guys which are expert in electronics. They said, guys, ferroelectric RAM, it's the way to go. So we didn't make the same mistake as Tesla did, because obviously Tesla used flash in their units, and now they had to repair, I think, like 20 or 30,000 cars because of that, because flash just goes corrupt. Or lately, if you are, what's the correct word, harvesting Chia coin or farming Chia coin, it can destroy your flash drive in like 2 weeks. This is because flash just goes corrupt after read-write cycles. So we had all this input that was available at that time, and we just wanted to solve the problem. And I encountered many problems at that time with what was available in the market. And based on everything, I think we did choose another way. And some people might not agree with us, some people might agree with us, but the main thing is we wanted to really be different. So we didn't want to put another product on the market that just has a different skin, because I mean, nobody needs a product that is basically the same as everything else, right?
So you discussed in the beginning of this that you decided not to do seed phrase, which is, I'm glad
Yeah.
we're getting right to that, because honestly, that is, I think, the majority of people on Twitter during the fiasco that was being locked out. The number one concern and the number one kind of push for you're going to be fine came from like, hey man, you should be fine. You've got your seed phrase. Right? No worries. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. You got your seed phrase, you're locked out of your device. You can just back it up to another device. So if you could kind of touch on why you decided to go, Jesus, these flies, it's a hot summer day. If you could tell me the reason you decided to go that route, because I mean, in the Bitcoin community, that seems to be almost a no-go. And Ninja, if you have anything to add to that, please. I know you're here for that kind of conversation. So
yeah, I'll let Alan go first.
Okay, so I mean, exactly as you mentioned, the number one thing they said is exactly what you just mentioned, but also the number one thing how people lost all their crypto is because of the seed words. Not that they are a bad principle, it's because of the mistakes people do, right? So it's not a problem of technology by far, it's a problem of understanding. We have unlimited number of cases where people are claiming things like, oh no, but somebody stole all my crypto from device A or device B. I never ever exposed anything. Well, they have, but they didn't understand what they did, because for example, they entered 24 words into application on the mobile phone, but they didn't understand that 24 seed phrase words unlock everything without the pin. So even though you have the pin on the device, the seed words are not using the pin. So if somebody has access to your pin, to your seed words, or well, obviously you make a mistake and give them the seed words, it's game over. But what is the frightening part is exactly also what is the advantage. So if somebody gets your seed words today, you are exposing all your wallets from the future. They are all linked in a big tree. And the thing is that you might not know that. So you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I didn't have anything on those wallets. I'm just using another wallet in a month, in 3 months. Well, guess what? It's game over, because the seed words link every single wallet to those same seed words. And we said this is the number one reason why people are getting bent over. We don't want to have that. And the thing is that I completely agree. Seed words are excellent last resort backup, because obviously they work without the passwords, right? So whatever, if you have the seed words, that's it.
yeah, I think at least from what I've kind of gathered since our last conversation and around this conversation at large, is that the last resort um, option is it's also tied into the ability to, in a last resort option, to have the security to know that you have access with zero access to any kind of physical device. So I know with BC Vault,
Hmm.
you guys have done a pretty cool backup process with the QR codes and with the SD card. And the option for the, I believe it's the 64 digit seed string is also an option, but to memorize those types of things or to rely on an SD card or a paper backup if you need to. If I mean, listen, I think it's unlikely if you're an American citizen that the dictatorship country needs you to like fly out in last resort to get away to something better with just the words in your brain. But you never know, and there are plenty of people across plenty of countries that that scenario is likely, and being able to
Yep.
remember what your Bitcoin is in your brain is a very powerful tool that at the moment is a bit more challenging through BC Vault.
So
Yeah, I
Alan,
would say, yeah,
I,
go
I,
ahead.
I agree with the sort of the problem you're trying to fix, and I do agree that it's sort of an issue. Like it's because seed words are, like you said, Kyle, intentionally easy to keep in your head and easy for humans to use and interact with. It also makes it easy for an attacker to try to hack the human and say, hey, human, I'm going to trick you into typing these in because it's easy for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's a legitimate problem to fix. However, I do disagree with a couple things here because I think you can accomplish the same thing and still largely conform to sort of the standard user experience wallets have, which is using BIP39 seed words. So you mentioned a couple things where you're like, well, if you lose your seed words, it's gone. They not only know your current wallet, they know everything in the future. And
Hmm.
I just want to clarify some terminology. And I know lots of Bitcoin terminology is not really nailed down and specific yet, but typically when I use the term wallet, I think I'm meaning something different than you, because when you're saying wallet, you're referring to what I think most people think of as address. So like if I were to do the same thing that you're talking about, I could do this and use standard HD wallet with BIP39 seed words, but I only use one address. I only use the index one address every time I create a wallet, and every time I create a wallet, I generate a new set of seed words. Now, I think there's some different ways to approach that, but so I could do the BC Vault implementation and have a BIP30 HD BIP39 wallet and just have multiple sets of seed words that are ultimately the backup.
That's exactly what you have to do. Exactly. But
and
the problem is
so yeah,
that,
no, yeah. So then it's easy for the user to be tricked into revealing those, right? It's sort of
yeah.
your thing. But I still think having that, I would see the best way to do it from my perspective is to have that standard user experience, but maybe the default way to backup is SD card, right? So it's still, you're putting seed words or encoded seed words on the SD card, and the user never sees them unless they go into the advanced menu and click on this and do this, and they do this advanced thing, then they can get their seed words out or something like that. So the standard user experience is SD card. They don't know about it. It's just binary data, but there's still seed words on the back end that you can go in and get. It just, I don't know. To me, it would be a more consistent user experience.
I mean, I completely agree with you. And we have even went to the longer way to do exactly what you're mentioning. Why? Because seed words are not layer 1. Seed words are layer 2 or 3. So this is why BC Vault offers raw private key export of every single wallet. So you want to have a raw private key, which is layer 1 of every single crypto wallet implementation. You can do it. So we do offer export of raw private keys of every single wallet stored on BC Vault, which means You are not dependent on us. You are not dependent on our company. And ultimately, you are not dependent on micro SD card backups or QR codes if you wish so. You have opportunity to export the most fundamental wallet information available, which I'm sure we all agree is raw private key, because the raw private key is the lowest segment or the lowest layer of any crypto wallet, and we do offer that. So yes, I completely agree with you.
Yep, and I looked through the documentation. I'll let you get in 1 second, Kyle. Let me just address one thing here. Yeah, I looked through your documentation. I did see that, and that gave me a little bit of confidence. But one thing I get concerns me again about the architecture is that's sort of not the default, right? The default is encrypted private keys on the SD card or encrypted QR code. And
Yep,
that's
correct.
sort of what everybody does. That's what they're encouraged to do. Not many people are aware to, first set up the wallet with no passwords, no pins, and save an unencrypted. So the normal user experience is going to be these proprietary encrypted blobs. And I only say proprietary in the sense that there's not any open source documentation on the exact. I'm sure you're using standard encryption, but there's no documentation on the actual application of the cryptography to decrypt those, and that's concerning. So like, if you guys are all on a plane going to some event and the plane goes down, and Kyle's BC Vault breaks, he's going to have a hard time trying to figure out how to decrypt decrypt his private keys and get them on some other device.
Actually, no. Why? Because the export of the private keys works without our infrastructure. So whatever happens, a person can at any point, without us doing anything, export private keys. So even if they do the default things like backup to a micro SD card, backup to QR codes, whatever they do, they still have device to which they have access, right?
Yeah, assuming they still have a working device, right? Assuming they have a working device, you can export, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yep, I agree.
So they have a working device, and they can export private keys at any point without anything from our side. So no infrastructure is needed. So the other scenario where they don't have the device, right? Or as you mentioned, there is no documentation and so on and so on. We have thought about everything you have been saying. The two-edged sword of open standards, of security, of everything is always the same. If I tell you things about how we did things for security, I'm giving you a shortcut as a hacker. If I don't tell you those things, I'm not giving you a shortcut, and it's gonna be much harder. So make your pick. And this point is very important, where I say make your choice. Why? Because it's in our eyes, you have to be the one to do the choice. So even if you use BC Vault without any password, empty PIN, empty password, whatever, nobody can remotely exploit your device because they have zero access to your backups. It doesn't exist. It exists on micro SD card in the device. It can exist as QR code. Well, we can argue about that you confirm creation of QR codes, and then somebody from your computer can, intercept the data going to the printer. Yes, of course, but it's your option. So you can choose what you would like to do, because obviously, I'll make an example from a standpoint of gun safe. Yeah, if you buy a really, really secure gun safe, it shouldn't open under any circumstances. Any, because your children might play around with it or whatever. So the only way to open a gun safe should be the correct entrance of the pin, and that's it. I mean, there is no backdoor. There shouldn't be a plate on behind where you can take your M10 wrench, and just unscrew it and have access to the safe. This is not the correct way to do it.
It's funny you bring up gun safes because I've actually done some research on gun safe security, and I found I wish I could give this guy some props here.
I know they are all bad. They are all bad design. I completely agree.
He's a lock picking sort of expert, and
yes, it's really easy
on mechanical security, and it's absolutely amazing how trivially he makes the lock security look on these gun safes. But that's actually sort of a direction I want to go though, because to draw an analogy with the BC Vault or other electronics, like when most people look at this gun safe, they see a big fancy lock, steel and all this stuff, and that's what the novice or the non-technical user sees, and it looks really safe and secure. But for the technical or experienced person, well, they can look at that lock and they recognize the type of that lock, and they know that lock can be picked in 2 seconds. But to the regular user, it looks like a very secure lock. And I think I see the same for the BC Vault. Like, I mean, these guys are making gun safes. They're supposed to be making these things secure, yet they're not. And until it's exposed, you don't know. And I'm not making accusations against you guys, but I think I really, especially for the storage, basically the encrypted blob that's my backup, I just think it's so important to have that documented, because if that's done correctly, it's using standard applied cryptography and standard algorithm. There's really no worry in disclosing the actual method of encapsulating that data. And I mean, that small piece, would personally make me feel a ton better about using a BC Vault, because I know if what's on there, I don't need you guys at all. I don't need any information from you guys. I know it's on here. I know how to recover it. It's mine.
Yeah. So I got to chime in here real quick, because as a user of BC Vault who appreciates what the device is and has had really no concerns with it up until I was locked out, this is become the kind of the growing concern on my end as well, is that I appreciate the level of willingness to help that happened immediately after I found myself locked out. I appreciate that in our last chat, Alan, you guys had mentioned that after what happened, you had went in and kind of changed the software side of things so that the
verify wallet function.
Yeah. So the verify wallet function has become not part of the advanced user feature. And so tying into that, it's like, now I'm kind of looking at, as far as what would be advanced user feature versus not advanced user feature, the idea of having that ability to get the seed phrase so that I have a very easy way to memorize my Bitcoin information in a string of words that I know for sure in the absolute apocalypse scenario I will still have access to. What I hear you saying on BC Vault's end is that, like, the biggest hack worries are that somebody gives up their private key information.
Yes.
But the private key information leak is, at least it seems to me, is much more from a lack of education on the private user end than it is a security bug on the overall network that is the hardware wallet setups. So I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from, but it almost feels that maybe it just needs to be, you can get a seed phrase through the advanced features. Like, you can turn on advanced mode, you can download your seed phrase, and there's an education that kind of comes with it. There's some kind of panel that pops up and is like, listen, once you've exposed any of this to anyone, you are at serious risk. So before we give this to you, really do some research, understand what you're getting into when you click expose this seed phrase. But having the seed phrase feels very, very important. So
I get
that's just where I'm at
point
right
you're
now.
coming from, But the thing is that we do exactly what you said. You can export raw private keys of each wallet, and we do exactly what you said. This is really, really important. You have to understand this is raw private key. Never give that to anybody. This is the lowest level of any level existing for crypto wallet. Let us understand one thing. Seed words are not the lowest level. BIP39 is not the lowest level. That's something invented by BIP. So it's not the lowest level. The lowest level is raw private key, which we do offer export of. This is the underlying, you cannot go lower than that. It's the most primitive raw information that ties you to the wallet. And we have made a decision that this can be done by the user and they can have access to it exactly because all the points you mentioned. Why we don't offer seed words? Our wallets are not linked. When you create wallet A and when you create wallet B, they are not linked by any means. There is no way to generate seed words for unlinked wallets. It doesn't exist. Because we have opportunity where we say, if you choose to delete wallet B, it will be as it never existed. With seed words, every single wallet you use will be always tied to you through the seed words. Always. It's a hierarchical tree of wallets where we create each single wallet address completely random by different algorithms, which also use gyro sensor in the device, so we can guarantee through random number and so on and so on. And there is no way we cannot create seed words for completely unlinked wallets, which is one of the big advantages because our wallets are completely random. If I hack your BC Vault or steal everything today, I have absolutely no way to have access to your wallet that you will create tomorrow. It's not linked to anything. I mean, zero.
Hey,
nothing.
Alex, one thing though, I want to back up and clarify though again.
Yep.
The encoding of the data, representing the entropy as words or as text strings, is independent from whether you're using an HD wallet where you're deriving additional keys from the base. Now,
yeah.
So I mean, it's possible to use a different encoding to store it, but what I actually maybe you guys would do here that I think would help your users and be useful would be to show a user how to recover a wallet, an address in Bitcoin Core. So you go into your BC Vault, you say, okay, display.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
You write it on a piece of paper and you show them how to do the core. Now there's a caveat there, right? Because you don't really want them typing it into their PC unless in an emergency, and you'd have to sort of make things clear. But I think documenting that, hey, you can take this private key and you can type this hex string in, and here's how you can get it into core and use it, and then it would give, I think it would give people a lot more confidence that there's a sort of fail-safe backup mechanism that doesn't require any specialized knowledge from BC Vault employees that I can go through.
Exactly.
That was going to be my next question, was kind of in that very same thread, is that like if I'm taking the setup that you guys have listed with the hexadecimal string, where do I get information on how that is useful to me if you guys are not around? So yeah, I agree 100%. Some way to, whether it be through the software when you set up the device, or whether it be through a YouTube video, or maybe both, that information would be, I think, very beneficial and would probably put a lot of people's minds at ease.
I think that's a very good idea. We'll definitely add that. And the thing is that we had many users that actually use that approach, not because of the reason we are talking about right now, but because of the reasons of wrong understanding of tokens, for example. So people have sent cryptocurrency to Ethereum that is no longer Ethereum, for example. And we did send them complete information of how to export private key of Ethereum wallet, import that into another official wallet of that whatever blockchain currency they wrongly sent to Ethereum, to import the private key and recover their funds. So yes, we already had people using that functionality in such a way because of different reasons, because they didn't know that a couple of coins went to their own blockchain, are not part of Ethereum anymore, or maybe they didn't understand things as Ethereum blockchain versus BSC versus BNB, stuff as that. It's for the regular user, that's like what? I mean, what's that? And they do make mistakes. And so I completely agree. We'll add that. Maybe we'll make an example of how to do exactly what you mentioned. So how do I access a BC Vault, a Bitcoin wallet from the official Bitcoin client, for example? And I'll write a full tutorial on that and let the people know what the correct procedure is to do that. Also to mention, we have already committed to that. We already said that whatever would happen to BC Vault, to real security, and so on, if we would decide to stop development or whatever, we would certainly release source code to be able to access your BC Vault backups directly by a software wallet, and gain access to all your funds, even if you don't have the hardware device anymore. Just to go back to the point where why don't we release everything right now? There are a couple of things that we can patent. There are a couple of things that we do differently. We do not, I want to make that clear, we do not change encryption standards or invent encryption algorithms, right? So everything in regards to cryptography is what it is. So AES, elliptic curves, everything is as it is. We didn't try to be smart asses and change algorithms where we would actually create flaws, right? So no, nothing like that. We have a couple of things that we think are valuable, can be patented. We will patent them, but until we get the patents, we are not ready to release them because it's a simple possibility that, well, somebody would steal our knowledge. So just to clarify why we didn't do it yet, it doesn't mean we will not do it. I mean, it can happen that BC Vault will someday release everything as open source. I mean, it can happen. But right now, we just want to protect our intellectual property because in many ways, we are completely different than what competition does. If you look at competition, vendor A, vendor B, vendor C, vendor D, they're all the same. They use the same algorithm, the same procedures, the same beep words. Everything is the same. They don't have anything to protect. Well, we do. It's in the global world of patents and trademarks and everything else. It takes time to protect stuff. It takes a lot of money to protect stuff globally. And this is our reason in general not to release everything right now. And as a patch on that, it was decided that we will offer export of raw private key, as we mentioned, to calm everybody down. So in our eyes, if you have raw private keys, somebody will be able to help you to gain access to your funds without BC Vault. So in the worst case scenario, you will be fine. But I completely agree. We will add an example of how a raw private key from BC Vault, Bitcoin wallet, can lead to access to the same wallet from some other client, as you mentioned. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Alan, I mean, that's interesting you point out that patent angle on it. So that makes things make a little bit more sense to me on why you're doing it. But I would say, I mean, it's the longer it is closed source and you haven't patented it, for the reason that you're doing some proprietary thing. I think the the more you're risking it, because ultimately the algorithms you're using, they're not secured that well. You know, they're sitting in the microcontroller, they're in source code, they're in binaries that move around. And
Yep.
ultimately, if somebody wants to go to the work, let's say there's some attack or something on that. Are you guys still using that SAM4S part, that Atmel SAM4S? That was in there still? I saw a tear down of your product,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
anyway, whatever.
I see your point.
Ultimately, if
Yeah.
there's some sort of breach of the microcontroller locking mechanisms, the attacker can ultimately get that binary. And even though it's more work than going through source code, they can go through that binary and they can watch what you're doing for the algorithm and reverse
Yeah.
engineer and patent it themselves. So
Sure.
you
Sure.
have a
I mean,
a small window here to really securely try to seek that patent before it can get exposed.
it's just providing shortcuts, and we don't want to provide shortcuts. That's the only thing. I mean, we are completely aware. You can take your time. You can deassemble the code. You can do whatever you want, but we will not be here to provide you with a shortcut. That's the only point. We are completely clear on that. It will not help you to do anything to BC Vault, because obviously you will understand how everything works. You will not be able to crack anything, because ultimately you would have to crack elliptic curve to do any damage. We also do things completely different than everybody else, in a way where, as I said, approach to the most exploited angle in the world of crypto, which is stealing your seed words. We have to be completely honest here. People are losing huge amounts of money, not because somebody cracked the hardware, not because somebody cracked the software. It's just because somebody tricked them to give away the 24 words. I mean, go over the most famous or most visited forums, most visited vendors of crypto wallets right now. There will be like, out of 20 posts, there's gonna be like 15 of those explaining you should not give away the seed words, because that is number one attack vector. It still is. It will be for the future. And our main concern and priority was to solve that problem. Yes, we had to, well, take different approach, different angle to open source. I always said open source is a two-edged sword, and you have to admit it is, because it has many advantages. I'm a big fan of open source, but it also brings disadvantages. So you have to be completely honest. You have to look at the SWOT analysis of advantages, weaknesses, strengths of open source, and you will see that, well, yes, I mean, there are disadvantages. It's not everything. It's not just sunny, and it's up to the user, or it's up to the particular community to decide what is the comfortable level for them. Somebody will say, I will not use anything that is not open source. I completely get your point. Well, find a product that fulfills your needs. Somebody will say, I don't mind. And somebody will say, I don't even understand what you're talking about. This is the reality. I mean, guys, you are using, well, not you personally, but we are using non-open source switches and hardwares and firewalls and softwares and operating systems and keyboards and mouses and I don't know what. Believe me, if we can eliminate number one problem of people losing crypto right now, for us, that was the most important aspect. And if with that, we can offer additional advantages, as the backups do include the wallet names, you can delete the wallets are completely unlinked, and so on. We have fulfilled a mission of creating a different wallet, because really we wanted to show a different path. It might be that the future will tell if we were on the wrong path. But well, who knows? If you don't create things differently, there will be no. I mean, there will be no future development. There will be no, um, um, how to put it? There will be no better things in the future because everybody will do the same. I'm not claiming BIP 39 is the wrong approach. Um, I'm just claiming we tried to be creative, different, and looked at it from a different perspective, where all the disadvantages of that we tried to cover. So exactly as I mentioned, raw private key export and so on uh, was made available just to cover the bases which you correctly emphasize. Yes, it's a drawback, but we tried to solve that with a different approach. So yeah, if you are a big fan of open source and for you, uh, your crypto wallet has to be open source, well, right now BC Vault is not a wallet for you. Um, because obviously, as somebody claims that they have to use Linux for a GUI, well, I'm not trying to convince you to use Windows, right? Or Mac OS. You just have to pick your camp. What we are trying to emphasize is just that we intentionally made different decisions to offer a product that has different specifications, different advantages, and of course, different disadvantages. And it's up to the user to decide what is the most important thing for him. And we will certainly try to improve on anything that we can improve on. And as I said, it might be that BC Vault will be open source wallet in a year or maybe 3 years. I don't know. It can be simple as that because obviously what you're trying to do is protect your knowledge, your hard work, and after all, your money. Because the thing is, and that's very important, that's really, really very important. BC Vault is created by a company that exists for 19 years. It's not a startup. Did you ever question yourself about who those guys are creating that wallet? Who are those guys? What can they show? Who is behind them? I mean, we are a company representing top security players on the global market. We are a distributor for global IT security companies for almost 2 decades. We have put our own money where our mouth is. We didn't spend other people money and just, well, we don't care. We can shut down the project in 2 years. We are a company that cannot shut down because we have other things we do. So did anybody ask themselves who is the company that created their wallet? Maybe it was a Kickstart company that exists for 6 months. So, I mean, there are many, many, many vectors you can approach the same question. And if you approach it from all the directions, there always will be a direction that's not really comfortable for the company. So for us, gladly, that's not history. So if you check history of our company, you will have a lot to see, and you can be quite comfortable that we are not somebody that tries to scam you out of your coins or whatever, where I cannot vouch that for the others.
Yeah, one thing I would like to see, sort of a hybrid here that might help you, that I think, helps me, is the hybrid proprietary plus open source approach, where you have your implementation layered such that there's an open source side of your implementation that I can, as a security researcher, I can just go look at the open source side, and you design the open source side to provide all the security that is needed. And I can go evaluate that. Hey, they're doing the right things. The code looks good.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that open source application of security, you pass it to a backend proprietary closed source piece of code that does other stuff. Now I'm talking mainly about the wallet code, not about the encrypted backup, but that does other security measures, and you use the secrecy of those measures to add additional security. But the security of the product doesn't rely on that. You could
Yeah.
completely remove that and just leave this open source front end of security measures that I've evaluated and I can attest to, and it's good. And so we don't even care if you did the back end stuff right, but if you did the back end stuff right, it adds more. You know, I'd
think
like to see maybe a hybrid to something like that. It's almost what Ledger does, right? You know, Ledger has it for other
Yeah,
reasons.
I know. Ledger has a closed source on secure chip. So whatever they do there,
but a lot of that source is actually open source. So it's not all the source on that chip is closed. So I've been able to go in and look at the code. I can see they're doing some things right, but now some of the important things are actually hidden that I would like to see. But you can take a split architecture like that and make it sort of satisfy me as a researcher just trying to evaluate open source projects and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah, I think that's also a very good idea. I just wrote it down. I think what we might do is we have to really think about it just out of perspective of phishing and scams, not out of other perspectives. To offer a user, for example, to create a special kind of backup that can be decoded by an open source software implementation. For example.
Yeah, I like that strategy. Right? I think you can do, hey, just the standard, you know, AES 256 backup.
Exactly.
Mechanisms, or you can use proprietary, or like I said, do it in a layered way where you do both your proprietary backend and front end.
That's a very good idea. I'll certainly have that discussion with our development team probably already tomorrow because I really like it. The point where we would like to certainly solve the issue is how to prevent phishing and scammers to direct the users to do that in a wrong way. So, because I'll give you a real world example. It already happened that somebody made a fake BC Vault application for iPhone. We don't have iPhone applications, right? So somebody made a fake BC Vault application and tried to persuade the user to export the raw private key and type it into the application, which of course with BC Vault is it's quite hard. So the user was really aware that something is fishy because this is just, I mean, you cannot even export raw private keys without booting the device in a special mode. Not because we are just happy to complicate everything. We just wanted to make sure that if user tries to export private keys, we can really relay them to his doing. So we made this whole, we invented it. It's called iQuit mode. It knows I know what I'm doing. iQuit. So you have to put it in iQuit mode to be able to use the export private key function. And because obviously user doesn't know how to enter iQuit mode, they have to read the manual. And when you read the manual, you have like 1,000 warnings about doing that. And if we would do something like that in a way where we would say, create an open source BC Vault compatible software wallet backup, for example, where we would skip certain things that we would like to patent and so on. And that backup file would be able to be loaded into the open source wallet software where, while you do the regular crypto wallet stuff. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So thank you for that. Certainly, we'll discuss that.
I do have what now, sort of along those lines of exporting the unencrypted or unencrypted keys, you know, through QR codes or some mechanism like that. I do have one concern that I sort of want to address and cover. So, so your wallet architecture has a split password entry where part of the password is entered on the PC and part of the password is entered on the device.
Correct.
And in general, I like that, right? On a PC, it's very easy to have very long, complicated passwords. However, you can't always trust the PC, so you want some password on the device, the best you can do to protect that. And you guys have that four-way keypad in order for the user to click directionally, enter arrow, up, down, left, right, clicks to be the password on the device. Now, I don't have one. Make sure I'm describing this correctly. Stop me.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah.
Now, Now the fact that your encryption of the QR code is proprietary does help you with what I'm going to say here. But I'm just going to assume, we'll call it just a shot. You're just hashing the passwords together and coming up with an encryption key and decrypting it. So it's sort of the generic application of this thing. One of the problems I see though is on your website, and I think in practice. Actually, I'm gonna call Kyle out here. We'll see if he gives the right answer or the wrong answer.
Okay.
Or the answer I'm expecting or not. So Kyle, are you using a password on the keypad on the device on your BC Vault?
You mean the PIN?
The PIN?
Yeah, I have so for the wallet itself, entry into the wallet, I have a 16-digit password on the computer. And I went with
Don't tell us.
Somebody
will hack you.
Yeah, several digits of PIN on the device as well, and I have that for not only the device but for the individual Bitcoin wallet as well. So it's I would imagine highly secure.
Okay, well, so this is where I think there is something that is users need to be very careful with, because each click on the keypad so there's 4 possible clicks, right? Up, down, left, right, right? So there's 4
correct.
possible, so that is 2 bits of security per click. Okay?
Yeah.
2 bits per click. Unless you have a password that is greater than 50 bits of security, it is trivially brute forceable. So
Exactly.
And so 50 bits of security. So I just ran I looked up, the cost of running an AWS, P316X large, $25 an hour. And then I just put this bits of security into cost and this is specifically brute force. It's running, I looked it up, so it's a benchmark for running Hashcat on that, and Hashcat's a common password cracking program. So I just looked up benchmarks of that application running on the AWS server, and then just did some math on the cost, right? So basically at 47 bits of security, which is 23 clicks. So up, down, left, right, back, forth, up, down, right, left, up, down, 23 clicks. That costs $80 to crack.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So and then, 50, so at 51 bits, like 3 more clicks, that goes up to $2,000. And then at 56 bits, it's up to 55,000, and 61 bits, it goes up to $1 million. So basically, unless you're using 30 clicks, well, a few less than 30 clicks, the PC application, if the PC was malicious, the PC has your password, but it doesn't have your device PIN. The PC
and something else.
Let me finish.
The most important thing that completely ruins everything you are saying right now. You don't have the backup.
Well,
so
here's the trick.
You cannot do anything with the password. You cannot do anything if you have the password and the PIN.
That's
100%. You don't have the backup.
That's 100% correct. However, because if I'm an attacker and I control the PC, as soon as you plug your BC Vault in, I can just tell the BC Vault to export the QR code, and it's just as a yes/no confirmation.
No, my boy, you're correct. In one way, you can tell it to do it, but a person has to confirm it physically on the device. So if Kyle sees, do you confirm the backup for your device, and he didn't request it, and he says, yes, of course I do. Well, it's the same as the Kyle entering 24 words in a malicious application.
No, I mean, you're right.
You cannot do the backup.
I'm very concerned, though, about the confirmation message, because when you're using your Vault, like if I take my Vault, I go plug it into my computer to do a normal transaction,
Yeah.
I'm expecting to confirm things on it, right? So I'm expecting to, just
Yes.
generically, I'm expecting to press buttons and confirm things.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the confirmation message is very ominous, it's
It
really
is.
easy for a user to accidentally just click, hey, I'm trying to do a transaction, and the BC Vault just clicks up a confirm. You just click confirm without really reading
No,
through the message.
it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It works like, do you want to confirm the QR code generation of the backup? Confirm, cancel. So it works like that. Or do you confirm to create backup on a micro SD card?
Sure.
Confirm, cancel. In case of transaction, it's do you confirm the following? And then everything is displayed again. Source address, destination address, how much, the fee, the coins, the wallet name, and not only that, very important, when everything is confirmed on the device and the signed transaction goes back to the computer, that the computer will check if that is a signed request as it was sent. So even if you have a malicious device, changing the destination address and giving you back a signed address with a different address, signed transaction with a different address, you would immediately get a warning that something's not okay. So yes, you are absolutely correct. We have went through this scenario and we do believe it's not possible. Why? Because malicious attacker cannot create a backup without the user physically confirming creation of the backup, by the way, only QR code of the unit. And then again, if you create the backup on the micro SD card, it doesn't help. And most of the users just use micro SD cards, really.
So I agree with that, but I would, so with hardware wallets, and even me as an advanced user, I rarely use my hardware wallet because most of what I'm doing is accumulating.
You are hodling.
I'm just transferring to either Watch Wallet or the same address or whatever I'm doing. And when I go to use my hardware wallet, I don't even remember the screen flows 100%. Like I'm like, I'm even a little unsure. So I think it's a lot easier to trick users because you're very uncomfortable every time you're using it. And I just concerns me that so here I'll give you I'm going to restate this and I'll give you a suggestion. So it concerns me that a one button press error, like maybe you just didn't read that message, you're just used to just clicking confirm. A one button press error breaks your security. Now,
it's not one button.
Here's where I would give you a suggestion. I think the QR code export should be, you maybe keep track on the device how long the user's PIN is and determine if the PIN is long enough to allow for a QR code export. Something like that. Like, hey, okay, you used 27 clicks. Your PIN is safe enough to QR code export. And if they don't use a PIN that's long enough for that, you don't even give them a QR code export option or something like that. Because there's just lots of concerns about a QR code if it's not strongly encrypted by the device. Now, you have an extra measure here that, to your previous statement about proprietary security protects you, because right now I don't know the algorithm to try to brute force the password. So I can't easily roll out this attack. That's another step. I'd have to reverse engineer that algorithm. But I still prefer the encryption being an open source thing, and things like this just sort of being fixed or mitigated.
I think we might add additional warnings to that in a way where we already warn the user. It's not just one click. So this is why we have a big display, because we can display the full messages. So what we do is, do you really want to create a QR code backup then it's not just a one click. You have to select confirm, and then you have to confirm. And that's not all. You know why? Because you have to enter your PIN and your password. Right? So the thing is, it's not really one mistake and your QR code backup will be available to whatever hacker on the computer and they can download the PDF file. Because it's just not so simple. But I completely agree. We might add additional warnings to QR code backup, as you mentioned. So people might understand that a false request for backup might be suspicious, right? I didn't click it, so what the hell is that? Users might get confused to that, so yes, I'll certainly propose that tomorrow also to do some additional warnings and things like that. But the thing is that right now it's not just one click. So the remote attacker.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not one click, but remember your argument for your security measures in the device is the fact that people will just type in their seed words onto the computer, which also is not one click. It's sort of a pain in the ass to go type in all the seed words, right? So,
but they still do it.
Users can be tricked enough to just go type in their seed words when they're not supposed to. It's a similar level of difficulty, right? The goal is to be more secure than that, right? To make it much harder to mess up. So, again, yeah, I'd like to see this QR code export be,
further complicated.
Yes. Complicated, or at least guaranteed that you can't, somebody can't brute force it if the computer is malicious.
I think your idea and your proposal was excellent, and I wish we would discuss everything around that with you before. So thank you. What we might do is the following: we might completely disable QR code backup unless you are enabling the advanced mode. And even in advanced mode, the QR code backup will warn you about the things we just discussed. So people will have QR code backup disabled by default. And whenever they will try to enable it, it will tell them, please read this knowledge base article about these things. And you have to enable advanced mode, by the way, and so on and so on. So yes, I think that's a great idea, and I will certainly do that.
Alan, I have one more thing along this line, which was, so you mentioned that I mostly agree with. Most people are using the SD card, so this isn't an issue. Now, if as long as QR code isn't allowed, then this isn't the same issue. But there is a similar issue with SD card that I'm curious. I don't know a few things about it. So, are your SD cards formatted with a file system, or are they just binary?
You can read it in a PC. It's just you can put it into the PC. You can read the backup files. There are normal files. You can copy them to your Gmail, whatever. Store them in your cloud. Whatever. They're normally
I like that, but that also opens up the same possibility for the SD card, just in a little bit different angle, right? Much
different angle, yeah.
As the attacker, so I'm the attacker. I control the PC. I control all the messages the user's seen on the PC. So and so this means the BC Vault app is corrupt. I can make it. Now, obviously, there's different levels of attack, and this is harder than others, but we'll just assume worst case scenario, right? I can control the messages they see in the BC Vault PC app. And I go out and I tell them, okay, now that you did this transaction, okay, put your backup into the computer. Right, put your SD card into the computer. And it's sort of easy for them to be like, oh, grab the SD card, not really knowing what they're doing. And in this case, if they put their SD card into the computer, it's the same attack as the QR code. Since I know their password because they typed it into the malicious computer,
because you captured it. Yeah.
I can brute force their PIN again unless it's long enough. So I almost, now this almost goes against what I was saying earlier, but I almost don't even want that in a standard file system. Maybe some file system that is, I don't know. I actually don't know. I didn't write down what my best solution was here, but like I said, I think you can trick them the same way with the SD card. So maybe there's a way to prevent that, or maybe the fix is you just really force them to have long pins. There's I don't know, but just another way to think about this.
Now you see why we are not open source right now, because everything you just mentioned would be much easier if you would know how to decode the backups, but you don't. So exactly, and this is the thing.
Let's say BC Vault goes huge, right? Everybody has a BC Vault. There's millions of devices out there, and Bitcoin Moon's here. We're sitting at $1 million. People have millions of dollars on these things.
Yeah.
It is now very easily worth my engineering investment to extract the binary from the MCU and reverse engineer your algorithm. It's a very relatively straightforward thing I can do. Now, there's definitely an investment in time, and it'll take some time, but it's not like this unsurmountable hurdle. So I think that the fact you have some proprietary stuff is giving you some cover for things like this.
For now.
But I definitely don't want to consider that a sole thing to rely
on. Yeah, I mean, same applies to every single device on the market. So that's it. I mean, you gain access to the person's computer, capture the password, somehow trick him to give you the pins and also the backups. Well, of course, it's game over. But it's at least you have to do 3 strings. With 24 words, you just need one thing. It's 24 words. Game over. Bye-bye. So with BC Vault, you have to get 3 things. And with, at least, let me put it like 4 things, because you need a BC Vault too. And with 24 words, I just need 24 words. Game over.
So okay, in this scenario where we're talking about the SD card as the potential hack route that you guys are talking about, just throwing out what came to mind just now, pretty simple solution would just be like, I'm trying to come up with a scenario where I would think BC Vault would need me to give them my backup. So another simple warning, just kind of saying, hey, you're about to back this up to an SD card. Don't give this information to anyone, including BC Vault. Like, BC Vault would have no reason to ever ask you to insert your backup after you've done such and such. So don't do it. I mean, does that make sense? Is that like a simple kind of, at least just another layer of warning given to the user?
You never put your SD card in a computer unless you're in some emergency situation and you know what you're doing.
That's the point. The thing is, advanced users as me, for example, or as Lazy Ninja, or as you, Kyle, maybe, will say, okay, I'm fully aware. That's my microSD card backup. What I'm going to do right now is the following. I'm going to take this microSD card backup. I'm going to copy it to my Google Drive. And somebody will say, wow, are you crazy? Are you crazy? You should never do that. I'm going to deny that and say, well, I don't care, because I'm using a long password. I'm using a PIN. I'm using everything else. And I know that that is a safe method, and I'm gonna name that backup something like I don't know, my watch firmware dot something. I'm gonna obfuscate things. So for me, that works. For somebody else, that doesn't work. And the thing with BC Vault was, from the day one, we want to offer users different possibilities. This is why, and please don't kill us. We offer user to use empty password. I mean, you want to use empty password? Go ahead. Because compared to, we're going to force you to use 32 characters of password with small letters and big numbers and I don't know what, and symbols, and you then forget it, is obviously the same mistake. So the user has a choice. We do warn them, do not do that, but you can. And after all, if a user with BC Vault uses empty password and empty PIN, I mean completely empty password, completely empty PIN, a remote attacker still has to do much more or exactly the same as with 24 words because they have to steal the backup. With the BIP, 24 words. With the BC Vault, the micro SD card backup. So the effort is the same. With BC Vault that has empty password and empty PIN. If I solved that with additional things as using the password and the PIN, the attacker immediately has to get two more things. And as Kyle mentioned, no, that's not all. I'm also using different password or different PIN for each wallet. So good luck, Mr. Attacker, because you also need that. And yes, I mean, you can take time, you can hack somebody, but at least it's gonna take you 5 times as more effort as with 24 words. And don't get me wrong, I'm not giving away my 24 words, and so are not you. And probably also Kyle wouldn't give away his 24 words. The problem is that people, well, that would do that, one mistake is enough. So giving away 24 words is enough. You don't need anything. No passwords, no pins, no discussion, nada.
But, I mean, sort of the same, like you said, Alan. Though, I mean, your device allows people to use no passwords and no pins. But you know, with BIP39 based,
it's always no password and no pin.
Yeah, you can have a password, right? I mean, a passphrase is a standard application of that, which you can have a long passphrase such that you can type in your 24 words, but you also have to type in your passphrase, and that can be on device. I don't know. I just see more.
Yep.
I see less difference there than you're highlighting. I think.
Yep.
I see more of your main difference is, the default is to not show, you're showing a hex string, right? So the default is you got to go into the advanced menu to get the user to be able to see the private key, the hex string encoded private key. But
yep.
I just don't see much difference between seeing a hex string encoded private key and going to the advanced, you doing exactly the same thing you're doing now, except I have to go into the advanced menu and do stuff, and I see 24 words. In fact, it's basically the same number of characters, right? I mean, except it's in word form versus numbers, letters, and lowercase.
That's not the difference. The difference is in a backup. The backup for the 24 words is 24 words. The backup for BC Vault is encrypted backup. So you steal my backup, you need the password and the PIN.
Yeah, but
you steal 24 words,
though, right? Because the 24 words, the passphrase is the encryption. I mean, technically, it's not using AES to encrypt things, but effectively, it has a password, and that is effectively encrypted.
Which is entered from the computer, and if I control your computer,
depending on the wall, right?
There is always an angle. I mean, there is always an angle. You're just trying to throw wood under the legs of the attacker, and that's the point which we try to do.
Anyway, I don't see a lot of difference there, but the difference I do see is your primary mechanism is SD card versus Word, right? So now the user has an SD card that has it, but I think we have to be careful to make sure we're actually, I mean, you are making it a little bit hard, right? Because 24 words, the level of compromise of the PC can be much smaller, right? I can just have a malicious website, and it's easy to just type those words into a website. A malicious website can't as easily recover an SD card backup if I trick you to plug it into your computer, right? I need a deeper level of compromise on the PC, perhaps, to get the SD card to get you to do that. But I really think there should be some. Like I said, I don't really have the answer, but I know these SD card backup solutions. I think there should be some deeper thinking about how to prevent people from plugging those into computers. Like I don't have the answer, but I think if you had a way to prevent that, or to make that harder.
I mean, one of the good reasons is you will not believe it. People don't have micro SD card readers in the computers. That's a stupid thing, but they don't.
You're probably right there.
So that's thing number one. For sure. Thing number two, why we didn't further encrypt the SD card, because we want to be flexible. So if you think you know what you're doing, you can gain access to your backup file and copy it million times, put it wherever you want to put it, and well, just keep it safe because you are using the password and the PIN. And this is additional thing that protects your backup as to what we mentioned. And then again, most important thing, disaster happens, right? So you are pound. It's game over, right? With BC Vault, at least your wallet from next month is not included. With 24 words, it's included. Because if you don't understand that, what I'm trying to say is the following. I hacked you. I got your backup. I got your PIN. I got your password. I got everything. I see you are poor. You have like nothing. You have $100. With BC Vault backup, I cannot use this backup and password and PIN in 3 months' time and say, oh, how much do you have? Because, well, I don't see your new wallet. Where with 24 words, I do see those wallets.
Well,
and that is
sort of though, because I mean,
well, you do see them.
There's the passphrase extension, right? So I mean, just me personally, I have a set of seed words as a cold storage wallet. But I have a couple different derivatives off of that where I use different passphrases to access different wallets, right? So I have my seed words and then my passphrase for my cold storage, and then I'm just making this up, and then my wife's passphrase for her cold storage. And if that passphrase is sufficiently strong, if I give away my passphrase and my 24 word seed, her coins are still protected. So I mean, I think you can do a lot of what you're saying with 24 words. But like, I mean, I do agree that typing in 24 words is easy, and that's how most people are compromised. But I just don't think some of the differences you're highlighting are as much.
It really comes down to the person.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to interject. Is I would say at this point it sounds a lot like we're at this point we're kind of just discussing semantics. It's like you two are both in agreement that the easiest attack vector seems to be the 24 words. BC Vault has done something slightly different where you don't have 24 words, and then after that it's just kind of subjective, like it's consumer choice. And that is one of the things that I appreciate about the conversations with you so far, Alan, is that you tried to do something different. You came up with something that you believe solved a problem, which was the attack through the 24 seed words. And then after that, you created something that gave the user a set of different options for how to secure and back up what they have.
Yep, so. Exactly. That was the idea. Not to be just another 24 words wallet.
Yeah, Ninja, does that sound like a good summation to you as well? I mean, because based on what you're really kind of saying, it sounds like some of the things you're pointing out with the level of difference you see is really just kind of user semantics. We're just talking about whether you're into open source or the kind of small differences that we've discussed throughout this podcast.
Yeah, I guess I would see if I can make not using the 24 seed words or 12 or whatever it is. I don't think that is very differentiating. It's almost, and this isn't meant to be offensive, but it's almost a gimmick to differentiate, where the differentiation, I believe, occurs is the fact that it's not easy to see the human readable form of the backup. The backup is in a binary form in a device, thus making it harder for the human to be, in theory, harder for the human to be tricked into disclosing the backup. That's sort of where I see the shall we say, innovation or fundamental difference is making the human readable form of the backup less accessible than the binary form of the backup. That's
Well, and
my
I would argue, I mean, that's so I can understand the differentiation you're making there between what really kind of sets BC Vault apart from some of its competitors. And I mean, what I just heard you say seems to me to be a huge win for BC Vault then, because for the most part, the largest error comes from the human side of things. It's like computers make errors and code make errors of a hell of a lot less than the human being. So solving for the largest attack vector in the human being error is a pretty big differentiation.
Yeah, I like the concept. Yeah, I'm just sort of trying to fix a few of the other things, or in my mind, talk with Alan about fixing a few of the other things that I think detracted from that. And but I think there is an advantage. That is a strategy that I think adds some effective security in the real world. It makes it a little bit harder for people to disclose. And I think and we talked about this too, like, additional measures to prevent people or to make it hard to plug that SD card into your computer. Or it's sort of tricky, but like you said, not having micro SD card readers on computers is sort of a step. I'd almost like to see something a little bit more there, but it's sort of a hybrid, because you still want, like I wanted standard encryption disclosed of how they're protecting the encrypted data. I still want it on a somewhat of a standard piece of media, so I can recover at some point. But yeah, I'd like to see some mechanism to add more prevention of plugging that into a computer, because it can be dangerous. Or
Yeah,
here, Alan, I have. Sorry, Kyle. Let me.
yep,
One more
go ahead.
thing I wanted to suggest, which might help. So basically, I feel there's users are not aware enough of how long their key press pin needs to be. So I
Yep.
think maybe some awareness of how long it needs to be, or I think maybe the simple answer is just display, an ASCII numeric keypad on the display, and just make the password letters. Ultimately it gets encoded in key presses for the user to get to the letter or something like that. But it's easier for humans to write down and record that, and it's easier to sort of express, hey, your ASCII numeric phrase should be, 10 characters long or 14 characters long or whatever. Where I think it's harder for people to understand, they need to press 27 key presses, and it's harder to remember and keep, up, down, where the, it's easier to look at letters and sort of click to the letter. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that every single change of that introduces different problems. For example, there was an attack vector where a security researcher claimed to Ledger and to Trezor and to us that we are all vulnerable, and we were the only ones not vulnerable, because he was convincing us all that he can read the pin from the display, or 24 words from the display.
Oh no, we lose that. Am I out, or did you? Kyle,
No, I think it's Alan.
Okay. I think I'm aware of what he's talking about. We'll give him a second to come back.
Yep.
I'll pick up. We'll let him come back. Do you want to just wait, or are we
Yeah,
gonna?
yeah. No, we'll give him a few seconds. I assume he'll be back.
Are you going to edit this and cut it, or should I just go on mute?
No, I'll figure it out on my end. Don't worry about it.
Okay. But yeah, I am aware of the attack he's talking about, and I do want to discuss that with him.
It's been a great chat so far, man. I mean, some of it has been a bit over my head as far as the more complex kind of like nature of the things you guys do, but for sure from like the broad viewpoints of like security, I think it's been articulated well enough that I think a lot of the average person is probably going to get a lot from it. So.
Oh yeah, too. Go back and think about like things that, because it's easy for me to not simplify enough when I'm talking with Alan. So yeah, let's re-hit on a couple of the points if you want, so that we can maybe clarify anything that was confusing to you.
Yeah,
help people.
For sure. I mean, at this point, I'm not really even sure I would call to mind. I mean, I'm trying to think right now, and there's nothing that's really come to mind that is over my head. I mean, like some of the wording and phrasing during questions and responses has been a bit over my head, but I would say as things have kind of progressed through conversation, almost all of the things that like happen in a string by the end of that string have kind of been clarified for me. So
Okay, good. Yeah, Alan does one thing. He uses the term wallet in a different way than I use the term wallet, which I think it is confusing. We probably should clarify that. I started to clarify that at the beginning, but I should have continued to clarify that more throughout.
let me see.
So he uses the term wallet in the same way that I use the term address.
Okay, now so what are there he is. Cool. What are you suggesting are the differences? Like what because as far as I'm looking at it, I'm not really sure I
Hey,
understand. How's it going, Alan? I'm not really sure I
sorry.
understand what you're. No, you're good. I'm not sure I understand the difference you're describing, Ninja.
Alan,
As far
how
as
about
like
we'll let Alan finish, but then I was just talking with Kyle. I just want to sort of also come back on one of the
Yeah.
terminology things, the difference between wallet and address and what we mean or thinking about there. But continue on with your pin.
I'm really sorry, but of course the Zoom crashed.
yeah, no worries.
So everything back. I just
pin-
wanted to explain a security angle that happened there because, as you mentioned, you said, for example, yeah, you can let the user choose a letter with the pin pad. While the security researcher was reading the pins out of, the dots on the display, and out of the dots of each line, he could get the word because once you did know how many dots in each line of each word are, he could theoretically read the word out of display. We don't display that because we just show the star. So whatever you press, up, down, left, right, is just the star. So it doesn't help you to read what did you press. Ledger and Trezor had to change the firmware. They had to add random pixels on each side of those 24 seed words to, avoid that issue. So you see, you do a really, really, really tiny change, it brings up another security issue. And you have to be really, really careful if you are doing that, because there are a lot of smart people out there, will get an idea how to exploit that vector. So if we would have input of the D-pad, where you can select a word or a number, like scroll up and down, and show the number and show the word on the display itself, that would be a security issue. We didn't want to do that. You will also not believe that, but we had a couple of users that told us they have a defect BC Vault unit, because whenever they're entering the pin, they just see the stars, and there's something wrong because, obviously they just see the stars. And we told them, like, yeah, it's the same as you when you are entering the password in Gmail or Microsoft Windows or whatever, you just see the stars. And they said, no. This is a defect unit because I just see the stars. So yeah, our security issue prevention mechanism actually resulted in false positive of you've sent me a defect unit. So there always will be somebody just making a mistake.
I get it. There's and I understand those attacks and stuff, and there are trade-offs. However,
yeah,
the thing we're mitigating though is the user. It's really hard for a user to enter 27 up, down, left, right series of data, and they just won't want to do it. They won't. They just. It's going to be really resistant because it's so unnatural to enter up, down clicks that long and keep track and write up, down clicks and keep track of where you are. It's really difficult, and I think adding some changes to your display to help to encourage the user to enter longer pins, I think it fixes more security problems than it introduces. But that's just a generic statement. I mean, you have to say.
The thing is that we are 99% sure this will not lead to exploit of the user's wallet, because as we mentioned, even if the user would use empty pin, in 99%, because obviously 100 is not reachable by anybody, that will not be a problem, because I'm not gonna be able to steal the physical backup of your device, the password, and the pin, and I'm not even be in the position to come to the point one. So if there is a person that got exploited where I'm fully controlling his PC, I did trick him into giving me the micro SD card backup. This is already 2 times as hard as tricking the person to giving me the 24 words. And out of that perspective, what we want to do is offer the user a solution where even two presses of the pin pad completely confuse the attacker, because if he doesn't have the password, I mean, I'm not controlling your computer, right? He will never be able to tell whether the password or the pin part is not correct. So the brute forcing of only pin doesn't even come and play. But if I do get your backup, I tricked you in giving me your backup, I did trick you in or stealing your password, I mean, it's gonna be game over for you anyhow. It
Yeah, and
doesn't
that's going to
matter
be
which
true.
kind of device you
Exactly.
are
It's going
using.
to be true on any single device at that point.
Yeah.
If you've given up that
So
much information, somebody's brute forcing your Bitcoin out of your wallet. So
exactly. I mean, I completely agree with you. Using the long pin is the way to go. But even if you are not doing that, in our eyes, in our perspective, it's much secure than having 24 words, because the only thing I have to steal are the 24 words, where I have to get your backup and the pin and the password. So out of that perspective, it's harder.
Yeah,
Obviously, you
I'm
have
not arguing to ever leave,
yeah.
Your coins on an exchange or something like that. I think using hardware wallets, in any case, are orders of magnitude more secure than all those measures. But I
Yes,
think
true.
the user needs to know the best practice,
and
right?
that
You
is
know, you can say, yeah, normal. If you enter a 2-character PIN or don't enter a PIN, you're probably fine. But they need to know, if you don't enter a PIN that's 27 presses or longer, if your PC is hacked, they can potentially trick you into losing your. I mean, they need to understand what the risk is if they do this or don't do this.
yeah,
If,
and that's
Exactly.
and security strength, like entering 2, 4, or 8 presses of the keypad, there's absolutely no difference. It makes no difference to the attacker. If you enter 20, it makes no difference to the attacker. Not until, and it's exponential. So not until you get to 27, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30 does it even matter to the attacker. And I think
Yeah.
those exponentials, people just don't have any concept of that. They'll think, hey, I entered 15, I'm probably good. No, you might as well just entered 1. It makes no difference.
What they have to understand really is exactly what you said. With combination of the attacker has to have your backup and has to have your password too.
Yep.
So, yes.
Yeah,
That's
I think
this is
point.
a specific attack, right? I mean, it's a specific attack, but again, we're just going for best practices. We want to be as secure as possible, as reasonable in all situations, right? They don't want to have to worry about, hey, well, I'm not my PC. I'm going to assume that's not vulnerable, so I don't have to worry about the PIN. We really, we want to leave that for the expert and have all the normal users as secure as possible.
So this leads me back to a kind of the thought process I threw out just a couple of minutes ago, which is that just like some kind of additional layer of warning. And another idea I just had is the potential that maybe, like, because there's a few things that really wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes to kind of introduce, like, if somebody claiming to be BC Vault is telling you you need to give them your backup, don't do it. Like the QR code being in the secure mode feature. But potentially, Alan, my thought process is that maybe you could just, like, when you launch the BC Vault software for the first time, have like a direct link to like a 10-minute YouTube video that discusses all of these important security ideas. before they
Hmm.
even go in and get anything set up. It's like a mandatory click this link, go through. This is what we want you to know before you get into this device, so that once you have started moving towards creating the backups and all of that stuff, you have a general idea that, like, listen, okay, as Ninja's saying, like, leaving it blank versus having 27 pin doesn't really make any difference if you make this critical error. So, like, here's our brief introduction before you get things set up. Don't make these critical errors. That's just my two
Yeah.
cents.
This is actually why we created the article called Deep Security Model BC Vault, where we explain exactly what the PIN is, what the password is, how everything combines, how the backups work in general, and so on. And we might put additional information into it. So maybe a question in knowledge base or a question in this article: when will I be hacked? Where we explain that, well, somebody has to get your backup, somebody has to get your password, and your PIN obviously is enough. Well, not enough, but what it takes. Things like that must be made clear as many times as possible. So we completely agree. This is
Yeah,
why things as
redundancy is key. I mean, the
exactly,
more times you're made
exactly,
aware of don't do
yeah.
this, the more likely you are to not do
So
it. And I think if you're
Yeah,
just like, if you're the average person, you're going to BC Vault because some YouTuber suggested that you go buy BC Vault and it's really secure, and like you like this YouTuber, and like that's your knowledge base. You just like then you go to BC Vault, you buy it, you don't read any of the articles listed on the website. And then you get this device, and that's it. That's all you've got. So now you're kind of learning on the go versus potentially trying to find ways where you can incorporate that redundancy up front to educate people as much as possible so that those mistakes aren't made.
yeah,
Because again,
I
even
mean,
YouTube videos, like if you're just out there making them and posting them, they have to go and find that information. If they're not forced to see that information, they might not see it. I mean, I personally, I found BC Vault through a YouTuber, and then I bought it, and this is where I'm at. I'm now learning as I go. This conversation has been great. I can't wait to share it with as many people as possible. But I think, if, to Ninja's point, we're just trying to take best practices into mind, then the idea of redundancy on these security measures and like the highest risk attack vectors being brought up, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's just beneficial
yeah,
for everybody.
I mean,
So
I completely agree. The whole problem of crypto right now is a general lack of knowledge of everything. So
yeah.
people don't even know wallets are just private keys. They think coins are in the wallet. The concepts are really, really far for them. And this is what leads to ultimate mistakes. They send coins to wrong blockchains because they think this is the same stuff. They don't differentiate smart contracts on a different blockchain. They don't understand distributed financing. They don't understand I can create a DeFi wallet right now and publish it and say, oh, this is the best wallet, and well, just have malicious code in it. So yes, it's in our all best interest to educate the person as many times as possible on those really important security aspects. So yes, I fully agree. This is also why when you use the BC Vault for the first time, you get all these dialogues which you cannot skip that tell you create a password, create a PIN. More information on that is available here and here and here, and we can work on that and should work on that to make all these things that we discussed really clear in one or different ways, with video, with documents, and so on. But ultimately, you will always have people, and I can vouch for that because I've seen it, that will tell us, why do you force me to read that? I don't want to read this crap. I want to skip it. So it's really different to cater somehow to all the broad audience, from the experts to the novices to the basics to the complete, I don't know, ignorant people not even caring. So
Right.
finding the right way in there, this is the magic. This is the real magic, how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, listen, you can't save everyone. I see your point. 99%, if you can get there, great. But like, no one is going to solve the problem for 100% because at some point you're just going to find that 1% that just like literally is so oblivious that they just, or ignorant that they just don't care to do the research. It's like, whatever, crypto
Yeah.
YouTuber says great, Elon says buy Dogecoin. Like there's people out there that just like they're not
Yeah.
going to spend the time to save themselves. And if people aren't willing to save and work on their own shit, no company, no institution, no anything is going to save that person. So yeah, that's where I'm at today at the end of this
Yeah.
conversation.
I'm sure that probably more than 50% of all people claiming that a certain wallet vendor is guilty, they lost not 50, probably over 90 or 80 of those people claiming that the vendor, it's vendor's fault. It's not vendor's fault by far.
Yeah.
So we are not claiming 24 words are the problem by themselves. No,
Right.
there are zero problem without a human factor involved.
Right.
And as you said, you just have to cope with it, and sooner or later somebody will say some shitty stuff about either you or a different company or competitor and claiming they lost all the money because of like you or the competitor. Well, it's not true. I mean, I can tell you stories, a lot of stories where people they're so confident that it's not their mistake, but in 100% it was their mistake. And thanks to God, everything clears up after a couple of days when you take your time, you think it over. Yeah, it's like you have to put a person in outside the bubble of it's not my mistake. And then when they start to think about it, it might be, oh, this is a real case, by the way. A person lost 100,000 euros because of that, what I'm telling now. Oh, but I did install this Android application and I did input the 24 words. It did work. I mean, it was working. So you think that was the problem? And we are like, sorry, guy.
Yep. That's a bummer.
Oh, that's a real case.
So, hey, I have something coming up in the next 15 minutes. I want to give both of you an opportunity to kind of ask any final questions, or maybe, I mean, we had discussed while you kind of disappeared for a moment, Alan, just like a generalized recap. If not, it's been a great chat. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful to Lazy Ninja for all the suggestions, and to you, Kyle. It's our mission to listen to what users say or experts can say or advise or give any recommendations. We are certainly there to discuss them, try to implement them, and make the product better. So we are in no position to claim we are the smartest on the planet, because we are not. We are just trying to see things from a different angle, because this is what usually helps to drive the future. You have to see things from a different angle, and we'll certainly try to implement things we've discussed today in one or other way. So yeah, thank you very much to both of you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alan. I don't know if I have anything else to ask, but appreciate your time and candid conversation.
yeah, I'm going to wrap it up with that then. I appreciate both of your time. Thanks for hanging out with me, and hopefully this will be beneficial to a great number of people. And on that note,
For sure,
I'm going to go ahead and call this one